5 years ago, perhaps naively, I wrote that there was a niche waiting to be filled in US journalism. I argued that media companies that didn't hide their management's ideological views, but would call out poor reporting and buncombe from those on their side, would quickly find a wide audience. On the right, the company would be run by people who swore by capitalism's wealth-creating power and held standard conservative positions on things like gun rights and government inefficiency, but held few if any views far from the mainstream. On the left, the company would be run by people who believed strongly in the need for a well-funded, compassionate government that helps low-income and marginalized groups, but held few if any views far from the mainstream. In 2023, the need for honesty-first media companies is stronger than ever. The firings of MAGA propagandist Tucker Carlson and loopy lefty Don Lemon changed nothing. They'll just be replaced by others ready to offer shaky claims as factual gospel. On the right, the most obvious need for institutional media honesty has to do with COVID-19. Solid cases can be made that schools were closed too long, that some crackdowns violated religious freedoms, and that too many people wouldn't even discuss the lab leak theory of COVID-19's origins and were too quick to tarnish people who offered these critiques. But to see Fox News pundits claim that COVID-19 was and is mostly hype, after the deaths of more than 1.1 million Americans and when up to 35 million more face potentially debilitating, long COVID, is stunning. At least a large chunk of the right, starting with the editorial board of The Wall Street Journal, knows this is posturing and pandering. On the left, the honesty shortage is on greatest display in the harsh derision that greets reporting by award-winning liberal journalists Glenn Greenwald and Matt Taibbi. They argue that, however one feels about Donald Trump, there is no question that he is a target of the deep state, an informal alliance of national security officials convinced Trump is dangerous. At this point, how anyone disputes this claim with a straight face is beyond me. The continuing drip of details about the October 2020 statement, signed without any corroborating evidence by 51 former U.S. senior intelligence officials, to Joe Biden's immense benefit, 3 weeks before the election, should confirm the deep state theory beyond any doubt. The statement depicted an accurate New York Post report detailing Hunter Biden's sordid personal life and, much more seriously, his coarse influence peddling to foreign business interests when his father was vice president as Russian interference designed to help Trump win a second term. The national media accepted this characterization without pushback, even though the New York Post report had built on a 2019 New Yorker story about Hunter Biden's foreign deal-making and tumultuous lifestyle. What also makes dismissiveness of the deep state laughable is U.S. history. Dwight Eisenhower, a former five-star general, used his final speech as president in 1961 to say the power of the military-industrial complex was a threat to democracy. The Warren Commission, which investigated John F. Kennedy's 1963 assassination, carefully examined the possibility that national security agencies were among those so upset with U.S. policies that they wanted a new president by any means necessary. Rather incredibly, the Joint Chiefs of Staff placed a spy in Richard Nixon's White House in 1970–71 because they were so worried about the most independent commander-in-chief they had ever seen. That spy, Navy stenographer Charles Radford, stole thousands of top-secret documents from the office of then National Security Advisor Henry Kissinger. Nixon didn't go public with the Pentagon's treachery because he knew it gave him a tool to coerce the Joint Chiefs. No such scandals have emerged since then, but there are hints of deep friction. In 2014, for example, the New York Times reported President Barack Obama was struggling to respond to an international firestorm over U.S. spying on allies and their leaders because he was so worried about a backlash from national security agencies, an ominous observation that didn't make the headlines it should have. And in a comment that was astoundingly prescient, on January 3, 2017, 17 days before Trump's inauguration, Senate Democratic leader Charles Schumer said on MSNBC that the president-elect was really dumb to lambaste national security officials. Let me tell you, the New York attorney said, you take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. The ACLU called this comment uniquely terrifying because of these agencies' enormous power. Yet after witnessing Trump's presidency, few on the left think this clout is terrifying. They know that when Trump took office, the biggest existential threat to the US was Russia. By then, the Soviet Union had long collapsed and Washington's strong relations with Boris Yeltsin, the first president of Russia, were a distant memory. Yeltsin's successor, Vladimir Putin, hoped for a return to the era when the Soviet military was considered the equal of America's, and he sought to rebuild the Soviet Empire by invading former Soviet territories Georgia in 2008 and Crimea in 2014. Given that Russia had at least as many nuclear weapons as the US, Putin was far and away the scariest person on the planet the moment Trump was sworn in. But the reality TV star was smitten with Putin's compliments, admiring of his macho rhetoric and contemptuous of most US allies, changing the tenor of the Washington-Moscow relationship. The idea that Trump is a knowing agent of the KGB is absurd, as if he could keep something that huge a secret, but the idea that he is a useful idiot to Putin is not. It remains incredible that Trump revealed classified information to the Russian foreign minister at a 2017 White House meeting. And that was just one in a long list of scary acts as commander-in-chief, including seeking to blackmail the president of Ukraine and casually threatening both North Korea and Iran with nuclear annihilation on Twitter. The scariness continues. Since leaving office, Trump has said Putin's 2022 invasion of Ukraine reflected genius, and there have been 3 recent reports about Trump's interest in pursuing acts of war against Mexico, a huge U.S. trade partner, if he returns to the Oval Office. What's needed now is a media institution on the left willing to admit the deep state had quietly concluded Trump was a threat to America and acted on that belief, even if that admission gave Trump potent ammo. Was this an act of patriotism by the deep state? I bet Colin Powell thinks so. So here's my cynical view: go, deep state, go. Then if Trump loses in 2024, go back to doing your day jobs.